Let's talk about spooky season of 2025. Hello everyone, welcome back to a fictional escapist. My name is Kris and today's video is our October wrap-up for 2025. Just a quick note, I very purposefully have not put out a TBR for November. I'm not reading a whole hell of a lot, and what I am reading just seems to be quite mood-ready right now, just with my release and that coming up. So whatever is going to be will be. I didn't want to put out a list and then just not read any of it, because a lot of my October ended up being quite mood ready as well. So we'll just let whatever happens happen there, and then hopefully get back to it in December. So, but today we are going to be doing a wrap up for October. I read a total of 5 things, one of them huge, and then the others all quite short, relatively short in there, but most of my reading this month was done on audio. That just seems to be where the retention is happening. But I will very quickly start off with Exodus. So this is a carryover from September. So I started in September, finished it right towards the end of October. I think it took me about 6 weeks to read, which it is around 1,000 pages, if not just shy of, so, and it is quite a big book. So I did this with a mix of ebook and physical book. This thing is heavy, so I just switched in between, and then I finished it off physically. I have very mixed thoughts about Exodus, and I will be going into an actual discussion with my buddy Ryan over at Genre Blender, so I don't want to go too far into it, but for those who don't follow Genre Blender but follow here, Exodus is the story of, there's a few POVs in here, but I would say our main one is Finn, who is someone who wants to become a traveler. So he is on a journey to find particular parts for a ship so that he can have a starship and then become a traveler. And it says, I think, Journey to the Stars or something like that. This is an interesting book in that it is a, I don't know whether it's like a direct story for the video game of the same name, or whether it's like a companion series to it, but it very much seems like it's set up to a game, and I can see how a lot of the elements in this book would work on a screen and being played much better than potentially reading it. So I didn't hate this by any means, but it was very long. There were more sci-fantasy elements in here than I would have thought. It is very space opera-esque. We've got military elements in here. The political machinations were something that I quite enjoyed. So a mixed bag for me. Like, I didn't really enjoy Finn, who I guess a lot of the setup for potentially the game or this world is done via Finn, and I didn't like him as a character at all. I found him quite daft, and the people around him were way more interesting. But I did find that the political landscape in here was really entertaining, and I had a great time with it. So I think I ended with this on like a 3.5, because like the political side of things with there's things like a mind line, so your generations or your leaders can pass that mind down to somebody of their choosing so that they never fully die, that the line just continues on. And I thought that was quite fascinating. We had some really like creative creatures in here that were made. So there was like these big spider-like things. I can't remember what they were called for the life of me, but they were really cool. Some of the military tech in here was really cool, like the ghosts, which are very like sci-fi game-esque, very sort of Mass Effect-esque if you're into that era. I've just watched Rachel play it on occasion, and it sort of reminded me of that. But yeah, a very mixed bag. I liked it. Did I like it enough to read the second one? I don't know. It is a duology though, so we'll see. I did like the political stuff potentially enough to read the second one, but I'm certainly not going to buy the big book. I probably will just get it on ebook and read it that way if I do go down that route. But I have lots of thoughts, so once it's out, I'll link Genre Blender down below. Very likely you would have watched this way before that episode comes out, however. Yeah, it was fine. It was fine. It was enjoyable enough. I'm not reading it. I had to go and find this from like my unhaul pile. I was like, where is this book? I'm going to talk about it today, but it's in the unhaul pile. So that should give you an indication. You know, it feels weird to say that for a 3.5 star book. I'm never going to read it again. So yeah, that was really my mixed thoughts on that one, and it did take me quite a long time to get to. Which brings me to the first audiobook that I picked up for the month of October, which was Dark Bloom by Molly McCabe. This was another mixed bag for me personally. I think the book and the writing had promise to where I can see this is a debut. I can forgive a lot of the shortcomings that I felt personally because it's a debut, and I'm looking forward to see where the author sort of grows. This is the story of a world that is turned to disease. So it's a zombie tale. We're dealing with zombie-esque creatures, turning the world and the people of this world have been turned into like these cannibalistic, zombie-esque characters, and it's a post-apocalyptic world where everything has sort of stopped. And we are following a character named Kate, and she's already in some trouble as she's trying to find food, and we see her sort of battle these monsters and then battle very human monsters as well. This story really goes deeper than just your zombie tale, and I will give it that. Like, I gave this a 3.5 stars because it does have some very promising aspects to it. One of those things would be the prose. It's accessible, it's simple storytelling, but it's done with layered prose, so there is more to that prose if you want to look further into it. The story itself is quite deep and layered as well. It's not just this post-apocalyptic zombie tale with some of the tropes that you would expect in that, but we are unpacking trauma through the characters. So we have both Kate, who comes from a background of, sexual and relationship abuse, physical abuse as well, so check your trigger warnings. It is available to you in this book before you go in. And we also follow someone who comes along on her journey called Nick, who is an ex-soldier who is also going through his own set of traumas. So it was interesting in that we are trying to not only navigate this landscape, which is, dilapidated and dangerous for people, but we're also dealing with these traumas with two people who are very flawed, very damaged, and trying to figure it out together. And there was a lot of trying to build up the emotional elements between them and the trust between them. I also felt like the author was really trying to dig into those deeper layers of the trauma, but then taking a step back and not letting us get the full effect and the full nuance of those. But that being said, it's a first book, and doing that is scary when you want to delve into those themes, and the themes are quite pointed on the page, and they're not comfortable to be talking about those themes at all. But having that desire to just really dig deep and to really force it into your reader's eyes and your reader's minds to make them think about it, I think potentially that would have made this a 5-star book for me. So it was interesting. By all means, I won't be stopping my Molly McCarb journey. I'm very curious to see how her journey as an author progresses, and if she gets more comfortable with delving into those themes, I think she could just be an absolutely devastating horror author with the themes and the landscapes that she's with. So again, a mixed bag there. 3.5, so I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it much more than Exodus with the same rating, if that makes sense. Hopefully I've explained it enough to be like, I'm not so much interested in reading Exodus book 2. I am very interested in carrying on with Molly McCarb's writing. The next one I picked up, I also had a average time with, or again, the writing was really beautiful, but I don't know. I picked up Everything the Darkness Eats by Eric LaRocca, and this is the only Eric LaRocca that I have not loved my time with so far. And this is following the story of Ghost and Micah. They're two separate POVs, again, going through their own traumas. The writing itself was really beautiful, but I felt like not a lot connected until the very end of this. It's either a novella, borderline very short novel. And so Ghost and Malik. Ghost has his own issues, Malik have their own issues. Very heavy themes of gay bashing and violence towards certain groups of people. In Malik's case, it is people of the rainbow. And in Ghost's case, it's just past trauma, like loss of loved ones. Initially, when I heard the first chapter, I was quite excited about it because LaRocca does not shy away from heavy themes. So I thought the darkness, because it is referred to quite early, was going to be a allegory for like depression and anxiety, and then it just sort of fell short of that for me. And I don't know whether that's because I've been utterly spoilt with what else I've read by LaRocca before, but this one fell short for me a little bit. I don't know. I will probably donate this one. It'll go into the unhaul pile, but I have plenty more LaRocca to get to, and I still trust LaRocca to tell a decent story. This one was so full of metaphors and similes for me that it just took me right out of what we were meant to be doing, or what I'm meant to be paying attention to. But I don't know. This one has probably got the lowest rating on Goodreads as well, so it seems like I'm not alone in that, but I don't know. I love everything else that I've read from Lorica, so I'll keep going with the journey for that particular author. Next up, I picked up one called the Pallbearers Club. This was by Paul Tremblay, and it was my first Paul Tremblay that I've ever picked up, and it was, again, a 3.5, so I'm having a very, like, I don't know, 3 is, like, above average, I guess. I'm having a very 3.5 month. This book was fine. I will be reading another Paul Tremblay at some point. It was entertaining. It was entertaining enough for me to blitz through this audiobook. Actually, I gave it a 4. I just checked my review because I've got my notes in front of me. So I gave it a 4. So it was quite entertaining. We are following a character called Pallbearer who is, we are told, has given this memoir that he's written throughout his life to an old friend of his called Mercy. Mercy is reading the memoir and giving notes at the end of every chapter. I thought the layout of the book was quite clever, and I did it on audio, which I thought really enhanced my my enjoyment of the book, because we're getting Mercy's thoughts in real time as the characters are reading it. And it's done by a dual narrator, so we have a male or a masculine voice and a feminine voice in there, so the back and forth between them was quite entertaining as well if you go down the audio route. So Pallbearer goes through his entire life, from 17 up until present day. And I personally love that storytelling style where we are being told someone's journey after that journey has been completed, and we get the nuance and the commentary of them going through that journey as someone who has grown and learnt those lessons. So I really quite liked it. So he was a gangly 17-year-old who had multiple sclerosis, I believe. I may have gotten that wrong. He had something where he had to have surgery on his back. I believe it was MS, but don't quote me on that. Scoliosis. It was scoliosis. Where he had to have surgery. He was quite unpopular, and he starts this club called the Pallbearers Club, where he volunteers at funeral homes for people who are either homeless or elderly and didn't have a lot of people to be at the funerals and help the undertakers then take them to cemeteries and the burials of the cremations and things like that. So this was quite interesting. The subject matter was interesting. The club itself was interesting and the premise behind it. And then we sort of grow up with this socially awkward human as he navigates his life. And there are some supernatural elements in there. Underneath it all, I think this was trying to be a vampire story, because we do have throws to vampirism throughout Pallbearer's life, which was quite entertaining. But at the heart of it, I believe it was just about this character and some of the things that he saw that he thought were supernatural. This memoir very much read like he was just trying to make sense of his life and then presented it to Mercy to be like, hey, here's this thing that I've done, question mark, to her. That was probably an awful description of that book. It was interesting enough. I felt like it was quite a unique take on the vampire tale, even though the supernatural elements weren't overt throughout the book. But I had a good time with it, and like I said, I'll read another Tremblay at some point. And my book of the month, which I'll do a full review on, so I won't go too deep into that, was I picked up The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This was a breath of fresh air. This was totally on a whim. I was scrolling through Libby and BorrowBox, so my library apps that I have on my phone, and it happened to be available. So I picked this one up, and I've been having really good luck with sort of gothic atmospheric horror in the classics this year, and I thought, why not? I've been thinking about it for a while. I've been thinking about watching the adaptation for a while, but I sort of wanted the source material first, and it was absolutely delightful. This is following a unique cast of characters. I really love the character of Eleanor, and even though I personally don't love haunted house tales, in fact, it's probably one of my least favorite horror tropes or horror sub-genres out there, I had a very good time with this, because it was not necessarily about the house itself. Of course, there were things that happened in the house that were like, ooh, is that spooky? What's going on there? But for me, the character of Eleanor just stole the show. This very meek, anxious-riddled character who is so susceptible to the world around her made this story for me. Once again, the prose was absolutely delightful for the classics, and this is something that I'm finding with classics, is I used to be scared of them because I thought that the language I was too dumb for it, and I'm finding that a lot of the language is not overly complex, but it is lyrical, so there's a very distinct flow with classic literature for the way that the words flow off the page, and it does feel like poetry, it does feel like lyricism when you read it, so which is why it probably works better for me on audio, and I had such a good time with this one as well. I won't go too much into that one. Like I said, I am going to do a full review for The Haunting of Hill House at some point in the future. That was my month. I feel like it was turbulent, like there was a lot of up, down, very middle of the road along the way. How was your October? Let me know what your favourite book of the month was in the comments down below. If you like the content, give one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will, and I will catch you in the next video. Ciao.